asking for a $10 bill because he had never seen one. That boy was Fidel Castro. 3. The University of Munich installed giant slides instead of stairs in one of their libraries. These slides can take students from 4 floors to the ground level. 2. Each of the suits on a deck of cards represents the 4 major pillars of economy in the Middle Ages. Hearts represent the church. Spades represent the military. Clubs represent agriculture. And diamonds represent the merchant class. 1. There was a third Apple founder, Ronald Wayne. He sold his 10% stake for $800 in 1976. I'll give you a few seconds to let that one sink in. Next time you're reaching for something to talk about, remember Ripley's 10 mind-blowing and generally useless facts. Remember listening to Grandma and Grandpa complain about having to walk 20 miles in the snow uphill both ways to get to school? We soon will have our own ridiculous complaints. Ripley presents 9 things that our kids will never understand. 9. Memorizing directions, reading a map. Even printing out maps online seems a little like the Stone Age at this point, doesn't it? Who would have thought that a few short years later our car itself would be telling us where to turn? 8. The TV Guide channel. Remember watching the TV Guide channel and having to wait for the show that you were looking for? Of course you looked away right before you got what you needed, and then you have to wait for the entire loop to start over again. 7. Learning to write in cursive. It seemed pointless even when I was a kid, because I never saw any grown-up writing in cursive other than a signature. Nothing like taking time to write in a special pointless way. 6. Manual car locks and windows. Rolling your window up and down was actually a chore. Forgot to lock your door? This didn't exist. You actually had to walk all the way back to your car and check. 5. Waiting to get film developed. There was nothing more frustrating than thinking you took a great picture, waiting for days and then finding out that your masterpiece looked something like this. There was no preview to see that your picture was good enough. You had to risk it, and risk it you did, because film was expensive, and you only had so many chances. 4. Dealing with the radio, or VCR eating your tape. Before digital downloads and streaming, we had DVDs. Before DVDs, we had this. When you were listening to your favorite album and your lead singer started to sound like he was possessed, you knew what was happening. 3. Using a library for research. Before you could ask Siri whatever your heart desired, you actually had to look things up. In books. These books were housed in large caves where you had to whisper. The caves were protected by small women in glasses and sweaters who yelled things like, "Dewey Decimal System!" Their reign of tyranny was ended by the Google Empire. Online shopping. If the store doesn't have it, you don't get it. We went to stores to buy things. Sometimes they had what you wanted and you were happy. Other times you went home with nothing. And number 1, dial-up internet. If you are not familiar with this, then you are a very lucky person. So there you have it. 9 things that our kids will never understand. 9 things that our kids will never understand. 4. Dealing with the radio, or VCR eating your tape. Before digital downloads and streaming, we had DVDs. Before DVDs, we got this. When you were listening to your favorite album, the lead singer started to sound like he was possessed. You knew what was happening. 3. Using a library for research. Before you could ask Siri whatever your heart desired, you actually had to look things up. In books. These books were housed in large caves where you had to whisper. The caves were protected by small women in glasses and sweaters who yelled things like, "Dewey Decimal System!" Their reign of tyranny was ended by the Google Empire, somewhere around the turn of the millennium. 2. No online shopping. If the store doesn't have it, you don't get it. We went to stores to buy things. Sometimes they had what you wanted and you were happy. Other times you went home with nothing. And number 1, dial-up internet. If you are not familiar with this, then you are a very lucky person. So there you have it. 9 things that our kids will never understand. Ripley's favorite awkward family photos. 8. Middle children everywhere feel this guy's pain. Watch out for the jugular. 7. This kid went on to become everyone's favorite manager. Michael Scott. 6. Your average Tuesday at Grandma and Grandpa's ranch. 5. Little known fact, this picture was taken 6 months ago in Silicon Valley. 4. This guy literally loves his family to death. 3. Their second born went on to become Daryl Dixon from The Walking Dead. 2. Oh! And the number 1 pick. 4 kids. Thinking junkie porn star Carson from Had White Cell. The basic white people problem. Everyone needs something to talk about on a first date. Ripley presents 10 mind-blowing and generally useless facts. 10. Each of the main characters on SpongeBob SquarePants was inspired by one of the 7 deadly sins. Greed, envy, sloth, pride, wrath, gluttony, lust. 9. A 28-year-old Korean once fell in love with and married a life-size Japanese body pillow. 8. If you're 1 in a million, then there are still over 7,000 people exactly like you. 7. Ushur's OMG sounds eerily similar to a song written by Homer Simpson. Yes, that Homer Simpson. DJs from a radio station in Jackson, Mississippi pointed out the similarities. 6. There are castles and lighthouses that are less expensive than New York City apartments. 5. In a 2008 survey, 58% of British teens thought Sherlock Holmes was a real person, while 20% thought Winston Churchill was not. 4. In 1942, a 12-year-old boy sent President Roosevelt a letter asking for a $10 bill because he had never seen one. That boy was Fidel Castro. 3. The University of Munich installed giant slides instead of stairs in one of their libraries. These slides can take students from any of the 4 floors to ground level. 2. Each of the seats on a deck of cards represents the 4 major pillars of the economy in the Middle Ages. Hearts represent the church, spades represent the military, clubs represent agriculture, and diamonds represent the merchant class. 1. There was a third Apple founder, Ronald Wayne. He sold his 10% stake for $800 in 1976. I'll give you a few seconds to let that one sink in. Next time you're reaching for something to talk about, remember Ripley's 10 mind-blowing and generally useless facts. Ten mind-blowing and generally useless facts. 6. There are castles and lighthouses that are less expensive than New York City apartments. 5. In a 2008 survey, 58% of British teens thought Sherlock Holmes was a real person, while 20% thought Winston Churchill was not. 4. A 12-year-old boy sent President Roosevelt a letter asking for a $10 bill because he had never seen one. That boy was Fidel Castro. 3. The University of Munich installed giant slides instead of stairs in one of their libraries. These slides can take students from any of the 4 floors to ground level. 2.
How do you know you're
Each
not
of the
a
seats on a deck of cards represents the 4 major pillars of economy in the Middle Ages. Hearts represent the church, spades represent the military, clubs represent agriculture, and diamonds represent the merchant class. 1. There was a third Apple founder, Ronald Wayne. He sold his 10% stake for $800 in 1970.